I thought she was sleeping next to me. Then I heard her voice from the kitchen, and another, a male voice. My heart lurched so hard I could feel it in my throat. The hallway light was off, but the faint glow from the stove clock read 2:17 a.m. I planted my feet on the cold hardwood floor and crept toward the sound, each step heavier than the last. Emily's voice trembled, soft and intimate, the tone I thought was reserved only for me. "Jason," she whispered, "I can't stop thinking about you." My pulse hammered against my ribs as I pressed my ear to the doorframe. On the other end of the line, a deep, familiar laugh, Jason's laugh, sent bile rising. I could almost taste it. "Emily, you mean everything to me," he said. "I wish you were here." Her breath caught. "I miss the way you touch me," she confessed. My vision blurred. For months I'd slept beside her, convinced of her love, unaware that her heart was whispering to someone else in the dead of night. I sank against the doorframe, my back sliding down until I sat on the floor. The kitchen smelled of stale coffee and toast crumbs, evidence of late-night chats I'd never been a part of. I watched her silhouette against the dim light, her hair tied loosely, her posture relaxed, betraying no fear of being overheard. "I love you," she said, and I felt the floor shift. Jason's voice grew soft. "I love you too, more than anything." Emily sighed, and I closed my eyes, trying to breathe without hyperventilating. I could have stormed in, yelled, shattered that phone, but instead I sat there, petrified as her secret world unfolded. When the call ended, I heard the click of the handset, then her footsteps padding softly toward the hallway. Panic and hurt twisted inside me. My mind raced. How long had this been going on? How many nights like this had I unknowingly shared with her? I planted my hands on the floor, fingertips pressing into the grooves, remembering how just a few hours ago I'd kissed her goodnight, believing it was enough. I stood, glancing into the dark kitchen one last time. She wasn't looking for me. Her eyes were on the phone, tracing an invisible path between our lives. In that moment, I realized our home was no longer ours alone. Morning light spilled through the curtains, warm and unforgiving. I woke to Emily's head resting on my chest, rhythmic breaths lulling me into confusion. "Good morning," she murmured, brushing hair from my forehead. Her lips curved into a smile that felt foreign now. "I dreamt about you," she said, eyes shining. I forced a smile back, nodding slowly, my tongue thick. "That's sweet," I managed. But every fiber of me trembled. In the bathroom mirror, my reflection looked hollow. I saw dark circles, the memory of her confession burning behind my eyes. At breakfast, she chatted about work, her voice bright. I spooned cereal, mind replaying last night's conversation like a broken record. My fingers brushed against the cool surface of my phone, and there, half hidden under her lipstick-marked coffee cup, was a message from Jason. "Can't wait to see you tonight." My pulse slammed. I stared at it until the words blurred. I looked at Emily across the table, her laughter light and careless. The betrayal felt like acid in my veins. I wanted to ask her why, how, when, but the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I nodded at her stories, sipped cold milk, planning my next move. Find proof, demand truth, reclaim whatever was left of my dignity. Even now, as the sun climbed higher, I couldn't shake the weight of that confession. Emily's love had slipped through my fingers in silence, and I wasn't sure I'd ever get it back. I spent the rest of the morning in a daze. Every little thing reminded me of her. The coffee cup on the counter, the way her lipstick left a faint stain on my jeans, the half-folded note I'd grabbed by mistake when she'd slipped it into her purse. I replayed her voice over and over in my head, soft, breathy, confessing her love to someone else. I decided I needed answers, not just the faint scare of suspicion. My first stop was her phone. I waited until she stepped into the shower, then grabbed it off the bathroom counter. Her passcode, 1234, was as predictable as I feared. I opened the Messages app and scrolled back through old threads, my heart hammering like a kid on a sugar crash. There they were. Late-night check-ins with Jason, weekend plans, flirty emojis I'd never seen aimed at me. One text flashed, "Can't wait to feel your arms around me again." I trembled as I read it, as if the words would burn me. She came out then, towel around her shoulders, and caught me staring at her screen. Panic flared behind her eyes for a fraction of a second, just long enough for my blood to freeze. I tried to slide the phone back to the counter without looking at her, but it was too late. She stood there, water droplets glistening on her collarbones, impossible to look away from. I said nothing. My voice felt gone, so I clenched my jaw and left the room. I needed space to think, space away from her perfumed air, away from the sound of her heart beating too close. I grabbed my keys and drove without a destination, my mind racing through every anniversary gift I'd given her, every promise I'd ever whispered. I ended up at the park where we used to picnic, parking under the same old oak tree. The midday sun filtered through the leaves, painting the dashboard in a pattern we'd laughed about once. I sat there, hands on the wheel, tears burning behind my eyes. I thought about confronting her head-on when she got home, looking her in the eye and demanding the truth. But I also thought about the alternative, moving on, walking away from everything we built together. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking fingers. Another text from Jason. It read simply, "See you tonight." My chest tightened. Whatever I did next would change everything. I sat under that old oak for what felt like hours, the late afternoon light softening the edges of my anger and grief. My hands were still trembling from the texts, but a strange calm settled over me. I realized I needed more than blurry snapshots of her betrayal. I needed clarity. Was this a one-night fantasy she regretted in the dawn, or had our entire life together been a lie? I killed the car and stared at the steering wheel, memories flooding me. Her laugh when I surprised her with flowers. The way she cradled my face during our first fight and promised she'd never let me go. I whispered to myself, "Tell me the truth," like a prayer. The breeze rustled the leaves overhead, as if the world were waiting for my next move. I called Mike, my best friend since college. His voice was warm on the other end. "Hey man, you okay?" I forced a laugh that tasted bitter. "Not really," I admitted. "Can you come over?" His tone shifted, concern sharpening in his words. "Yeah, where are you?" I told him, and he promised to be there in 20. While I waited, I peeled off one shoe and tapped my socked foot against the floor mat, running scenarios through my head. Confront her with the phone open? That risked humiliation, but might get fast answers. Or I could follow her tonight, keep my distance and watch. Either way, I couldn't go back to normal. I closed my eyes and pictured her face, heard her whisper, "I love you," to someone else. My chest tightened. Mike arrived, tossing me a cold bottle of water. He sat beside me without a word, letting me gather my thoughts. I outlined everything. The phone call I overheard, the texts, the way she looked when she realized I'd seen her screen. He rubbed my shoulder. "You deserve the truth," he said. "Whatever it is, you'll handle it." His words felt like a lifeline. I grabbed my keys again, determination washing over me. Tonight, I'd follow my gut. If she met Jason at the bar she mentioned in her messages, I'd be there, hidden in the shadows. I'd get my answers face to face. As the sun dipped behind the trees, I felt the familiar knot of fear and resolve tighten in my gut. Either I'd confront her and finally break free, or I'd find some way to forgive and rebuild. But first, proof. I shoved my phone in my pocket and started the engine. The oak tree disappeared in my rearview mirror, but I carried its memory, and that whisper, "Tell me the truth," with me into the gathering dusk. I pulled into the dimly lit lot of the brass lantern, heart hammering so loud I thought it might echo off the brick walls. Neon beer signs buzzed through the windows, and inside I could hear laughter and clinking glasses. My hands drummed the steering wheel as I killed the engine, told myself I wasn't jumping to conclusions. But every doubt, every betrayal wound, screamed that this was exactly what I feared. I slipped out of the car and pressed my back against the cold metal, peeking through the tinted window. There at the far end of the bar sat Emily. Her hair caught the low light in auburn highlights, and her profile, her laugh, the tilt of her shoulder, felt like a punch to the gut. Across from her, casually leaning in, was Jason. The same deep voice from that late-night call, the one that sounded intimate when it shouldn't have. He had his arm draped over the back of her chair. She leaned into him, her hand brushing his as they talked. I pressed my forehead against the glass. The bar smelled of stale beer and fried food, but I could almost taste Emily's perfume in the air. Jason was mid-sentence, his mouth curved in that familiar grin. Emily's head tilted back, and she laughed, real, carefree, and utterly in love. A hot knot of anger and grief twisted in my chest. All the what-ifs I'd run through at the oak tree crystallized into one chilling truth. She wasn't meeting him for coffee or a casual catch-up. I fought the urge to burst inside, demand answers, let all the hurt pour out in shouts and tears. But I watched as Jason reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. Instead, she twined her fingers through his. The sight flared a rage inside me, but also a raw sorrow I hadn't anticipated. I thought I was ready to confront her. Instead, I felt paralyzed, frozen by the depth of her betrayal. A waitress passed by, and I ducked back, letting her shoulder brush mine as I edged to the far corner. From here, I could see the way Jason leaned forward when he spoke, the way Emily's eyes softened at his words. It wasn't just a fling, it was something she'd been cultivating for weeks, months perhaps. And tonight, in this half-empty bar, she was fully present in it. My phone vibrated in my pocket, a message from Mike checking in. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over call back. I wanted to tell him to come here, to witness it. But more than that, I needed to see how this ended, whether she'd kiss Jason goodnight, whether she'd slip out the back door without looking back at me, or whether, by some miracle, she'd see me and the world would shatter all over again. I let out a slow breath, steeling myself. The door swung open behind me, laughter spilling out. Whatever happened next, I knew there was no going back. Tonight I would get my answers, even if I didn't like what I found. I padded through the crowd and felt a cool draft of air rush past as I nudged the door open. Inside, the world swelled around me. Red neon signs flickering against rough brick walls, the buzz of jukebox tunes, clinking bottles in hands I didn't recognize. My heartbeat pounded so loud I was certain the guys at the bar could feel it through the wood. I spotted Emily and Jason at the back, half hidden in shadow and smoke. Their laughter cut through me like broken glass. I wrestled with the impulse to roar her name, to throw every regret and accusation at her in a single, savage burst. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there a moment longer, taking in the scene that was once my world. Emily with her shoulders bare, leaning forward as Jason's hand lingered at the small of her back. She tilted her head, hair brushing his cheek. That soft gesture, so intimate, so deliberate, was the last thread unraveling every promise I'd ever held on to. When Jason caught sight of me out of the corner of his eye, his grin vanished. Emily stiffened, eyes widening. Time slowed. I could almost hear the edge in her breath, the electric pause before disaster. I took a step forward and the floorboard creaked like a verdict. Their heads snapped up in unison. "I'm done waiting in the dark," I said, voice low but steady enough to carry over the bar's din. Jason stood, chair scraping. "Dylan?" His tone was more curiosity than guilt. Emily stayed seated, hand over her mouth, tears threatening. I closed the distance, each step an avalanche of heartbreak. When I reached their table, I didn't bother with small talk. "Was it worth it?" I asked her. "Trading our life for stolen nights and whispered lies?" My chest burned with every word. Emily's eyes glistened. She swallowed. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, voice cracking. Jason hovered behind her shoulder, silent as a ghost. I looked at him, then back at her. "You never meant to," I repeated, "but you did." Everything in the bar seemed to hush, the music, the laughter. I held her gaze, searching for the woman who once promised me forever. She looked away, and in that moment I realized that forever was gone. The weight of her betrayal pressed down on me, and I stepped back, furious and hollow. "I'll walk out now," I told them, voice barely more than a whisper. I turned on my heel, each breath a struggle, and left their world behind me. Outside, the night air hit me like a wave, cold and merciless. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivered, and started walking down the empty street. Uncertain where I was headed, but certain I couldn't go back. Because some things, once broken, can never be made whole again. The streetlights blurred through my tears as I wandered without direction, each step echoing in the empty sidewalk like a fractured promise. My jacket felt heavy, like armor I no longer believed in. I passed a 24-hour church, its front doors wide open, warm yellow light spilling onto the front steps. On impulse, I climbed the few stairs, the worn wood floor creaking as I slipped inside. The sanctuary was silent except for the hum of a single bulb over the altar. I sank into a pew at the very back, the vinyl hard against my skin. Above me, a simple wooden cross cast a long shadow, and for the first time since that phone call, I closed my eyes and prayed. "I don't know what to do," I whispered. How do you forgive someone who gave your heart away? My voice sounded small beneath the vaulted ceiling. My thoughts wandered to Sunday mornings with Emily at our church, her head bowed in prayer, her hand in mine as the choir lifted us up. It all felt like someone else's memory. I let my fingers trace the grooves in the pew in front of me, finding a rhythm in that tiny act. Inhale, exhale, stare into the dark. Eventually, I stood and drifted toward the stained glass window depicting a sunrise, an emblem of hope I could barely muster. I rested my palm against the cool glass, studying the bright yellows and reds, and wondered if there could ever be a dawn after such a long night. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Mike again. He was worried, probably calling the police or texting my mom. I hit decline, not ready to answer. Right now, I needed space to figure out if I wanted to let Emily back in, or if I should draw a line under the whole thing and walk away for good. I left the church feeling strangely lighter, as if admitting my pain out loud had given it somewhere else to go. Outside, the spring air was crisp, and the sky above the street was turning from black to that thin indigo you only see before sunrise. I realized forgiveness, if I chose it, wouldn't just mean forgiving her. I'd have to forgive myself for loving someone who chose another. But maybe that was the first step toward healing. I kept walking, each footfall a quiet promise to myself. Whatever came next, I would decide it consciously, not let betrayal decide for me. And as the sky brightened, I felt, for the first time in days, the barest spark of possibility.